Welcome to the HU Movemakers podcast, where we highlight folks that are blazing the trail and making moves in Howard culture. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of the HU Movemaker podcast. We have a very, very special guest today. As you know what we do, we highlight folks that are blazing the trail and that have created a legacy for themselves, and not just a legacy, but create a legacy for those who have attended Howard University. So today's guest, where do I start? Renaissance High School, varsity basketball captain, Howard University, English major, theater minor, British American Drama Academy, A Taste of Romance, Ray Donovan, Paradise Blue. This woman broke Netflix with Luke Cage, breakout role in that. TV's first African-American female superhero. That's dope. I didn't even know that until I was reading about it. Altered Carbon. I was watching that as well. But we probably mostly know her as from All Rise, Judge Lola Carmichael on CBS. So ladies and gentlemen, Simone Missick. Simone, welcome, man. Thank you so much for coming on. This is a big honor to have you, especially given all your success. You're such a big influence. Every time I look on Instagram, you're doing something big. And then even in doing this, I know you from college because we were classmates, obviously, but just studying all the interviews that you've done and all your work, I'm impressed. What can I say?
Thank you, Josh. Thanks for having me. I'm worried if you can hear my dryer, my washing machine in the back.
Oh, man.
Make noise. Yeah, thank you for having me.
I heard a little bit. It's all good, though. But, tell me, man, I want to get right to it. You're from Detroit. Obviously, you're doing big things with the two roles that you currently have right now, because you are in two things right now, right?
No. So Altered Carbon filmed already, and that's on Netflix, and All Rise is ongoing. We just got picked up for season 2. So
that's dope. How does it feel to get picked up for season 2?
It feels great. This show is really important, I think, not just to me, but to a lot of people. It's the first show on CBS to be led by a Black woman, which is...
Really?
Yeah. Yes, it is. But yeah, I'm really happy because not only is it good to be the lead of a show, but to know that I'm telling stories that are important to Black people, to women, to people of color, to people who get caught up in the system based on, economics and lack of, economic power. And then also just very current stuff that we talk about. So it feels good.
That's dope. I mean, you're on a major network getting picked up. So, especially for season 2, I had Lance on the show, and he was telling me, one of the big things that he really doesn't feel pressure until after he signs a contract. And then he was just saying, like, when you do those network shows, he was just saying that sometimes it is, pressure. Do you ever feel pressure, or are you kind of used to everything that, given all your success?
I think that if I thought it was really dependent on me, like if I took God out of the equation,
mm-hmm.
then I probably would feel way more pressure than it's just.
Is that your Rottweiler?
That's my, my big fierce dog. Yeah. And so I don't know. I mean, I have so much faith in God. Like when we shot the pilot, my castmates were really worried, are we going to get picked up? Is it going to happen? And I was like, y'all, I pray to God. Like, I don't know about y'all. I don't know who y'all pray to, but I'm praying. Like, I'm not worrying. And so the pressure wasn't on me. Like, oh, was I good enough? Was my performance good enough? Did I, bring whatever I needed to bring for the show to get picked up? It was like, no, I mean, I did my work. I do my work. I approach my work with the same level of focus and intensity and all of that stuff. But I don't know. I don't feel that kind of pressure. So when it came to, will we get the full 22 episodes? It was kind of like, I'm still praying to the same God, and will we get a season 2? I'm still talking to him every day, and if for some reason, the show had not gotten picked up for a second season, I wouldn't feel like that was a failure on my part.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, it was something that I did or did not do. I would just trust that that was not God's plan for the show, and that is what it is.
So what about so tell me this. So, you're from Detroit, obviously. How does a girl from Detroit make it all the way to LA? And now, you're a leading woman on a major network, on a major show. Talk me through that. When you're from Detroit, were you always thinking about, being an actress? Was that always your plan?
That was always my plan, but I didn't do anything to pursue it really until Howard. And post-graduation, I went to BADA. I moved back home to Detroit. I started doing local theater there and saving up my money. And in 2005, I moved to LA. And so it was about a year and a half of just planning, saving, working. And I came out with nothing in terms of no connections, no one that I knew was working as an actor professionally. No one that I knew had it figured out. Going to Howard, I had people that I knew from Howard that were out here, and they were all just kind of lost in the same way, that I was once I got off the plane. It wasn't like I had majored in theater, and so I had gone through that system of having them go, okay, these are the steps that you necessarily take. Or it wasn't like I had gone to grad school.
But you minored in theater, right?
I minored in theater.
So did that translate at all?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, the lessons and the experiences I had at Howard in the fine arts department were invaluable. And, I had a great teacher mentor named Professor Kim Bay, who eventually became the department head of the fine arts program over at Howard. And she's a person who, I picked up the phone and called when it was time for me to move. Like, this is what I want to do. What should I do? And she gave, me advice to the best of her ability, which I took and ran with. But, when a person graduates, at least now, when you look at it, and even then, when a person graduates from, say, Juilliard, they have league showcase where, agents, managers, people will come, look at them perform, say pick them up as a client, and they are able to move to LA or go to New York or whatever with a foot in the door already.
So, does that make a difference to,
I think it makes a difference to
for let's say for Black folks.
I have a young lady that I know who's like a little sister who went to Howard, went to Yale, graduated, signed with CAA. Her first job out the gate is starring on a show, City on the Hill, on Showtime. I mean, that's a drastic difference between what I experienced and what a lot of people experience. I'm sure what even her classmates experience. So everybody's journey is different. Everyone's journey is going to be different. I can't say that, being a Howard major in fine arts would have made my journey any different than minoring in it or going to grad school. I mean, everybody's journey is going to be their journey.
That's real. But so when you were at Howard, I know you majored in English, but even when you were at Howard, you in your mind, you were saying, I'm gonna pursue acting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What made you major in English versus theater arts?
Fear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was a student athlete in high school. I played the violin, so I was also, I did music. I did that at Howard my first 2 years. And I did not have the courage to say to anyone that this was what I wanted to pursue. And so English was always something I was very good at. I had amazing grades in it. It was my favorite subject. I love literature. I love writing. And so that was the natural major. And I remember, even right before I went to Howard, I got offered a scholarship through Ford. And it was like, we'll give you a full ride if you will major in marketing, anything in business.
And you said no.
I said, absolutely not. And
Because for that Ford scholarship, that was a big deal. I know a lot of kids from Detroit had that scholarship at Howard.
Yeah. And, my dad was like,
Damn, so you turned it down?
What? Well, I mean, I had a full academic ride through Howard.
Oh, damn. I didn't know you was smart.
Yeah. Smart.
Damn, okay. So you had a full scholarship to Howard.
Full scholarship to Howard. My parents had to pay room and board, which wasn't a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
But, my parents were like, well, why not or my dad, not my mother, but my dad was like, well, why not just major in that? And, you could take English classes. And I was thinking, because I don't want to do either of those things. I want to be an actor. But regardless, I chose not to major in English. And then after I took my first acting class at Howard, I asked Professor Bay, should I change my major? Should I double major? Should I stay a year to make up the classes that I missed? And she was like, no, just take as many classes as you want and continue to study English and graduate on time. And so that's what I did. And, I'm glad I did not change course. I'm happy with the way that my life has, progressed.
Well, yeah, man, clearly you killing it, man. You are killing it. You doing your thing. So when you were at Howard, were you in any plays at all? Like, are you, other than academic classes, are you doing anything that kind of paves the way for you now?
So Nubia Henderson created the Blackface Awards.
I remember Spike Lee came. I remember that.
Spike Lee came. I did that. And then the second year, Debbie Allen came. And I participated in that. And then I did some work with the students at Howard when we would put on productions in the Black Box Theater. So like the grad students. And, undergrad showcases, but never a full-on play because those roles were reserved for the students who, were actually majoring. There were so few opportunities that, for them to bring in someone who wasn't majoring in fine arts, that wasn't really an option. And at the same time, I remember doing a film in undergrad with a Howard, film school grad, which was The Epicureans that Brandon Broussard directed. And so that was my very first film. But yeah, that was the extent of what I did at Howard.
So what is the Blackface Awards for people that probably may watch this and don't know what that is, or what was it?
So the Blackface Awards, like I said, was created by Nubia Henderson. She wanted to find a way to honor Black people within the arts. And the first year she chose to honor Spike Lee. And so a part of the tribute was the students put on different vignettes and scenes from popular Spike Lee films.
Okay.
And then he came and we performed them in I believe Crampton Auditorium for.
Were you like one of the main characters in some of these skits?
Oh, everyone only did one sketch. And so for Spike Lee, I did Girl 6, I believe. And I think.
Is that the one with like the.
So bad.
Girl 6 is like the one where it's like the hotline?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, different students were in that. I remember Gabrielle Dennis was in it. Angelina Spicer, who is now a comedian in LA, and she was in the fine arts program, I believe. She was also in it. And so, and a lot of fine arts majors were in this show. Mm-hmm. So it was just a lot of different sketches. And then for Debbie Allen, we did A Different World. There was a sketch from that. And, people just chose to do different dance numbers, skits, meaning scenes from, these people's resume, and that was the honor.
Kind of like TikTok, but 20 years ago. No.
Isn't TikTok? I don't know TikTok, but I'm gonna say, isn't that like lip syncing?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so not like TikTok, but I get what you're trying to say.
So, all right. So let's fast forward to graduation. I mean, you're a English major, theater arts minor. You said you majored in English because of fear. Was it fear of what?
You know, acting is not a profession that anyone in my family had ever followed. I didn't have any blueprint. And I say fear in that was, I didn't want to fail at it. I didn't want anybody to tell me I wasn't good at it. And so I chose not to major in it because there was
Okay.
a certain level of, you know, hoops that you would have to go through in order to become a part of the fine arts program, something that I wasn't prepared to fail at. And so I chose not to major in my freshman year, but then I had the option of changing my major. And like I said, my professor just said, you know, no, don't change your major. And so once I started acting, the fear of not doing it professionally went away. It was no longer that. It was just, well, now it doesn't make financial sense to change my major. I can just major in English and continue to minor in theater.
So it wasn't fear like, you know, when I graduate, it's going to be hard for me to get a job. It was more so, okay. Because I know I talk to a lot of people, and even, you know, just coming from, depending on what background you come from, you know, you tell your parents, yeah, I'm a major in theater. They looking like, okay, you know, that's going to be a tough road after graduation. You know, I had a lot of friends that, you know, wanted to be actors, or they started off in theater arts, but they never want to go through that struggle process because it's kind of like there's no clear blueprint on when you're going to start being able to make, you know, a good living when you're an actor. So you graduate. What are you thinking at this point? Like, what's your next move in terms of, you know, how you're going to pursue a career in acting?
Well, like I said, I went to BADA.
What's BADA?
So BADA is the British American Drama Academy.
Okay.
It takes place in Oxford, England, and I studied there with some people who are, you know, still successful to this day. During my class, Nelson Ellis, who was no longer with us, he passed away a few years ago, but he was on True Blood, was one of the students there. Another young lady, a friend of mine, Ngozi, she is now a playwright that produces plays from New York to LA and everywhere in between, and an actor. And another friend of mine, a guy named Ryder Doyle, is now on a show on HBO called Barry, but he also produced his own TV show on Netflix called Bonded. And so, you know, they produce, BADA has had some great grads, at least in my particular class. But it was, you know, a summer program opportunity to study acting abroad. And once I did that, I came back home and started saving up money to move to LA. And once I did, I moved in 2005.
So is BADA like a program that is revered, or is it something you have to apply to, or you just
You have to apply, you have to audition, you have to get in. Yeah.
So that was a huge leap of faith, you know, to go overseas to be in an acting class. How did you find out, or like, how did you know about that program at all?
They came to Howard. They came
Oh,
to Howard,
okay.
audition students, and I auditioned. And
Oh, okay.
it was only two of us actually that ended up going. I think a lot of people auditioned, and I think a lot of people got in, but it was a financial commitment. And I had already studied abroad, or I had already traveled abroad when I was in high school. I got the opportunity, because I played the violin, to play with an international orchestra. And so we toured Europe when I was 16.
Wow.
Spent the summer there, and then spent the other half of the summer in Europe and the other half touring the United States playing with this orchestra. And so I had already traveled abroad. It was something that I, you know, was interested in, and to be able to do it and to act was, you know, kind of a no-brainer.
That's dope. So your parents were kind of exposing you to the arts at an early age. I mean, not many people can say they toured, you know, abroad in high
Yeah.
school.
No, my parents definitely I remember my dad bought me a saxophone when I was in the second grade. And jazz was always very, very prevalent in our household.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of my parents played instruments. They weren't trained to play instruments. But my dad, he picked up the trumpet. My mom picked up the guitar. But they were just artistic people with regular 9-to-5 jobs. Like my dad was a teacher. My mom was a social worker. But music, art, we would go to the theater, we would go to the opera, we would go to the ballet, we would go to all kinds of stuff in Detroit. And always music playing, always a jazz concert to attend, always, always, always. And so for them, I think for me to have that opportunity to study abroad, I mean, my sister studied abroad when she was in high school. She went to Japan. My brother was supposed to go to China, but there was some political unrest that got that trip canceled when it was his time to go. But, my parents always valued international travel, and they always wanted their kids to look at cultures outside of their own, even though as a family, we never traveled internationally. I don't even think as a family, we went anywhere other than DC every year, because that's where my grandparents, lived, and that's where my dad's from. But yeah, they definitely saw the value in me studying abroad. And so they made that happen for me. And, it was, like I said, it was an invaluable experience.
Dope. So when you get back to Detroit, how, do you have an agent at this point?
No,
How are you?
I don't think I got an agent in LA until maybe 3 years here, maybe longer. And so when I got to Detroit, I just started looking up different theaters, who was doing a show, and I just started auditioning. And that's pretty much what you do when you don't have an agent. That's what I did when I first moved to LA. I was looking up, who's producing a short film, who's shooting a feature film, what can I audition for? And when you don't have an agent and you're not in the union, you're kind of fishing in larger waters. And so it was a lot of years of figuring it out, of making, I wouldn't say connections as much as building blocks, like figuring out, okay, if I do this, then that would lead me closer to that. Or, okay, now I'm able to join the union. That means that this is available to me. But it wasn't, there is no clear pathway.
So how long are you in Detroit? I mean, full disclosure, my wife was a theater arts major. She's a SAG actress. That's, we met. So I kind of understand the struggle of, of what it's like to be an actress. Not that I was an actor, but I kind of saw that firsthand. So you say you're there for 3.5 years?
A year and a half.
Oh, a year and a half. So, and then you moved to LA.
Yep.
So would you say that, for anybody that might be listening, do you think if you're really trying to make it in this industry, is moving to like a LA or New York, is that, if you're trying to be on TV like yourself, is that necessary?
I don't think that it is as necessary now as it was, 15 years ago when I moved. Detroit became a place where they started shooting TV shows and films. They've since stopped. That tax break left the city, and so did the work. But there are smaller markets, like New Orleans is a huge market. Atlanta is a huge market. Where is it? Not Santa Fe, but Chicago is a huge market. You don't have to be in LA. You don't have to be in New York. There are plenty of people who are working actors who are making a damn good living, and they don't live in New York or LA. But you do have to have, I would think, a system in place, like to live in Idaho and to try, be an actor from Idaho, and you not moving from Idaho is, I think, difficult. But at the same time, we're in a digital age. Auditions are done virtually. A lot of people shoot their auditions online, or they have Zoom or Skype audition sessions with directors or casting directors. And as long as you can hop on a plane, you could eventually make it out here if it's work dependent. So I don't think it's as necessary as it once was. Technology has changed that. But at the same time, if you're in a market where there is no one to represent you and you say, oh, I live in South Dakota, I want to be an actor. I'm not a member of SAG. I'm not a member of any union, but I'm talented. Here's my resume and headshot. And I have no experience and I have no, work to really show you. I don't really know how easy that's going to be, but you could live in, like I said, a smaller market like Chicago. And I don't even know if we can say Chicago is a smaller market. I mean, there's so many shows being shot out there. It's obviously smaller than LA, but you don't have to be just in LA or New York. There are lots of other places now in between.
Okay. So was it, going back home, was that a tough adjustment? I know for me, coming out of Howard, I was kind of carefree, having to move back to Chicago and basically live with my parents. And then being around the same folks that, my friends that didn't go to college, I get back, I'm living with my parents. They either living with their parents or they got cars and families. It was kind of like, I don't want to say culture shock, but it was like a mental like check. You know what I'm saying? Like, did you go through that at all when you went back to Detroit?
Absolutely. I chose to work at a restaurant when I got back home.
What?
I had in my head, if you want to be an actor, you got to be a waiter. I have to have a free schedule. And so I did that. I never wanted to have a career and try to pursue acting on the side. And so I figured, waiting tables is something that I will absolutely not want to do for a lifetime. So let me do that in order to, save up money. And I remember teachers, principals, ex-classmates would come into this restaurant and they're like, because at the same time, I was a stellar student athlete. Like I graduated high school with a 3.9. I graduated Howard with a 3.8,
Damn.
And I was the concert mistress of my orchestra in high school. I played basketball and ran track. No one expected this. And they all knew, whoever knew I went to Howard. So no one would expect that this person would then be hostessing in a restaurant.
So this was all a part of your plan though?
This was a part of my plan. And what was wonderful about it, I remember coming home one day after seeing somebody in the restaurant, and they were just kind of like, what the hell are you doing here? And my mom was the person who told me, because I felt low. I'm living with my parents, but I'm not worried about that because I knew I was saving up to leave. It wasn't like I was living with them indefinitely. So I didn't feel any kind of way about that. But I remember my mother saying to me, Simone, these people went to college to be someone's employee. You went to college to be an artist. You don't want to be a lawyer. You don't want to be a doctor. You don't want to,
Damn,
work.
shout out to moms.
Mom,
damn, that's a hell of a pep talk. Cause my mom was like,
really was.
You know what, Simone, like when I went home to work for my first job, I worked for this finance. I was working in finance and investments. It wasn't me at all. Like I felt lost. So fast forward, like I quit my job to go to bartending school. Because I was like, I need something flexible that kind of can pay some decent money. But I was living with my mom. So every day I was pretending to go to work. But I was pretending to go to work. So I would go downstairs in the basement and then sleep behind the bar that we had until my mom left. Because I thought so I go to bartending school, I finish. And then, I'm thinking, okay, I'm done with bartending school. I'm about to instantly get a bartending gig. It don't even work like that. So then I get a job as a waiter, just like, your story is. Obviously, I'm not trying to be an actor, but I'm just trying to figure it out. Like, how can I get some type of fulfillment? So I'm working, and just like you, people were coming in like, damn, Josh, you here? And then I'm making like $60 a day on some days. And this is like working like 10 hours. It ain't even like a nice restaurant. It's like a bowling alley / bar, you know, in like a middle class area. And I think word got back to my mom one time, and she came in like while I was working there. She just like laughed
Oh,
at me and then left. But I mean, you know, I think that one thing that I want to kind of get out of it, you know, talking to you is the whole process of becoming where you got to get where you are now, because people, you know, obviously they see where you are now and they like, oh man, you know, this happened overnight, depending on who knows you. But we all know that it's not like that. So yeah, if you could share how that was, you know, obviously you had a plan, but you know, we graduate from Howard, we had these big standards, and in some rights we feel entitled. Like, yeah, as soon as I graduate, I'm about to be Holly Berry or Oprah or whoever, but it ain't like that. You know what I mean?
I don't know if I think if I made, no, I had a number in my head.
Okay.
I remember saying, okay, I'm going to become famous by 28. And when I say famous, I mean a working actor. I don't mean like, you know, the equivalent of Instagram famous or reality show famous. I didn't mean that. I meant, you know, I'm going to be working. I'm going to be in movies. I'm going to be on a show. I'm going to be successful by 28.
Damn.
And that number came and went very quickly.
Why 28?
I saw that Gabrielle Union starred in Bring It On at 20, and I was like, well, there you have it. There's Black Girl Magic on display. She did it.
Mm-hmm.
Surely I can do it too. And, you know, it just, what I realized for me was that there was not going to be one thing. I think so many people think, oh, as soon as I get an agent, that's it. Or, oh, as soon as I get a manager, that's it. Or, oh, as soon as I book my first TV credit or film credit or shoot my first independent film or whatever, you know, people think that that is going to be the thing. And I just remember it being so many different little things. And so,
I remember seeing you. I don't know what I was doing. I saw you in like a Target commercial or something. I, I was
probably,
I was like, is that Simone? I remember that.
I did
And
a lot of commercials.
I
Did
was
a
like, is that
lot of
Simone?
money doing commercials. Yeah. And I thank God for commercials. Thank
Mm-hmm.
God. I made wonderful money doing commercials, way more money than I would have made, you know, waiting tables. And it gave me incremental affirmation. It
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, somebody thinks that you're good enough to sell a product. But at the same time, I didn't move to LA just to do commercials. And so there was always that pull of, okay, God, you know, this is not the end for me. If there is something else that I should be doing, please reveal it and take this desire to be an actor away from me, because this is, you know, year 7, year 8,
Damn.
year 9. And every time I would pray that prayer, I would get a job. It wouldn't be, you know, a lead role on a TV show. It would be a play or an industrial or a commercial or a short film. And, you know, all of these things started to, but it became clear to me, okay, just stop asking God if this is what you're supposed to do, and just focus on studying and training and getting better so that when it happens, you are prepared. And, you know, a series of things kind of happened. I mean, I ended up doing the NBC Diversity Showcase. Every major network has a showcase that they put on
So
to
when you get to LA, I mean, this is like what, 2006 maybe?
5.
2005? Is fear still a part of you, or are you like, I saved my bread, it can't be worse than Detroit, I'm all in right now? Like, what's your mentality when you get to LA? Because you bought a one-way ticket, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, you buy a one-way ticket, so you all in at this point.
I was there, and there was no, I don't know if there was any fear in terms of, is this what I'm supposed to do? No.
Was it fear of like, I need to do it now because, this is what I'm supposed to do?
No. I mean, like I said, I had a 5-year plan built in. I was like, I'm going
Oh,
to become successful in 5 years. So I'll give myself that 5 years. How it's going to happen in that 5 years, I don't know,
yeah.
but it's going to happen.
So when you get to LA, what type of roles are you taking? And then, do you have an agent at this point? Or is
I did not get an agent in LA for about 3, maybe 4 years. And if you look at my resume, the number of jobs I did before Luke Cage is probably 5. I did not have a huge resume. I didn't, have a lot of credits. And the roles all varied, I played somebody's mama in Taste of Romance. I played a police officer on Scandal. I played a scorned wife on Ray Donovan. None of these were like fully fleshed out characters that anybody would go, oh yeah, I remember that episode and that person. It was just a job. Theater was what sustained me
okay?
when I was in LA. And so I got to do a lot of work.
But you're full-time actor, right? At that point?
No,
No.
no.
So
I did not stop waiting tables until 2010.
Yeesh.
And I did not stop, or I did not work professionally full-time until 2015. So for that next 5 years, it was auditioning, booking commercials, booking jobs. So yeah, I mean, I was professionally sustained, but I was also married. And so there was a certain level of things that I didn't have to worry about because my husband was working.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
Tell me about that experience. What year did you get married?
2010.
2010. What is it like being married to someone that's in the industry? I'm sure that you guys can lean on each other because you have similar experiences. But at the same time, not that you guys do this, but it's the same profession. So there's that balance of support, competition, but what is that like?
I think it's one, we don't compete, but I think it's like having 2 lawyers in the house,
Mm-hmm.
2 medical professionals in the house. I mean, you've got somebody who understands what your day-to-day work is like, what your boss is probably like, what your, what your lunch hour is like. But it's, it's a marriage. A marriage is a marriage. And
Yeah.
it's 2 people trying to figure it out. And I think that the profession has little to do with it. More so than anything, it's just us. And so I can't speak to my marriage to my actor husband. It's just as different and probably the same as anybody's marriage.
A new ticketing platform that values event organizers so much more. EventNoir.com. Event Noir is the perfect ticketing technology for your events that rewards event organizers by helping them make extra money for each ticket sale they make. This platform truly allows event organizers to benefit from their own influence and hard work. Founded by veteran event organizers, Event Noir reinvests ticketing fees into its organizers that continuously use the platform and also enables its users with pricing power to adjust their rate for ticketing fees. But wait, there's more. Besides providing an easy process to set up events in a few steps and for attendees to browse for events and purchase tickets, Event Noir also features a variety of custom templates to create an event page, enhance ticketing and attendee management tools, and even includes the option to add live streaming events and more. Don't wait any longer. Get started today with Event Noir, the perfect ticketing partner for your events.
That's pretty cool. So, okay, so let's fast forward to 2010. And you said in 2010, that's kind of when you're able to walk away from being a waitress, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you walk away from being a waitress. At that point, do you have an agent?
Yeah.
Okay, so you got an agent now. What is the break that you get that kind of allows you to, say, I'm gonna just do this full time? Like what's going on in your career at this point? Or
At
what
that
role are you
point,
playing?
I had booked 3 commercials uh, in a row that were all with major companies. So the idea was I will probably make a certain amount of money off of these commercials. And my husband was like, you should just quit. Just quit your job. You know, you're gonna be fine. I'll take care of you. I don't think we were married yet. We were not married yet. I think so. Maybe I quit my job in 2009 because we weren't married yet. And it was really at his urging that he was like, just quit. You hate this.
That's
Um,
dope.
yeah.
So
And
when you moved to LA, and I probably should have asked this, but when you moved to LA, did you feel any pressure to kind of like change your look or act a certain way to kind of get roles that maybe other people were getting for whatever?
there is definitely, or was specifically during that time, a uniform of the way that Black women looked on TV and in film. Um, they all had long weaves. They all wore their hair straight. They all, you know, there was, and if you've ever lived in LA, there is a uniform of what people look like,
Mm-hmm.
especially then. And so I definitely felt that. I definitely, you know, slapped some fake hair up in my head and started wearing a lot more makeup. But at the same time, you know, that didn't serve me. It didn't. And it wasn't until I recognized that and stopped trying to fit into that, you know, I booked Luke Cage.
I noticed just from, in some of your bigger roles and even a lot of your roles, I mean, you've been able to play like, I would say strong Black women, and at the same time, you do have like, you got a natural look, I think that's part of the appeal about that. Is there any role that, you wouldn't play?
No, I don't think so.
Mm.
At least I can't think of one off the top of my head. I think that if there is anything that terrifies me, that's something that I would lean into.
Mm-hmm.
If there's something that I mean, obviously, I say obviously, but you know, you look at some actors and it's a constant conversation, you know, especially amongst actors. But when I look at, you know, Zoe Saldana playing Nina Simone, would I have done that? No, because I know the level of importance that Nina Simone has, not only to the Black community, but specifically to Black women who are darker skinned. And so all of the things that had to be done to make Zoe Saldana look close to Nina Simone, I think for me, I would go, I don't think this is, you know, this is for me.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how much I love Nina Simone, I'm named after her. No matter how much I idolize her music and, you know, all of that, I personally wouldn't do that. So I would probably not choose to play someone who color-wise,
I feel you.
I
Kind of
look,
like how white people be playing Egyptians back in the day.
and to this day, and still. So yeah, I wouldn't do anything like that. But other than that, no, there is no story that I would not, or no character. Now there are plenty of stories that I wouldn't tell just because they're not well written, or they're not stories that I, you know, am interested in telling.
Like, at what point did you really feel validated to say, like, man, I belong here? Because, honestly, when I watched Luke Cage, I saw you acting with like Alfre Woodard. I'm like, damn, I grew up with her. Grew up watching her in in movies, and like now Simone is working with her, and low key has a bigger role in the movie than somebody who we all grew up watching. Like, what is that like to, you know?
It's just as big a deal as you making it feel like, because it is. It's a huge deal. I definitely looked at. I would say that job was okay. I have done what I needed to do.
That's crazy.
I have gotten to the level that I wanted, um, and I've accomplished something that, you know, I didn't know was possible, but I'm very thankful to have. and being opposite actors like Alfre, you know, on that show, Frankie Faison, people who've worked for decades, Ron Cephas Jones, you know, just people who have been amazing actors for decades was, I mean, you can't put words into it. And at the same time, Alfre was such a giving actor that never was it like, oh, sit down, little baby. Let me handle this. She's such a wonderful person. Like, she's a friend, and she is a giving human being. And so all of that was, you know, it was a blessing.
When you first got, I'm assuming that, Luke Cage is probably like the breakout, for you in terms of, okay, I'm doing what I want to do and I'm eating. You know what I'm saying? What was when you got that first check, was there any bad purchases that you made, or
No.
was there any purchase, or what was the first purchase that you made?
Probably rent. I have no clue. You know, I moved from LA to New York 2 weeks after I booked that job. Like, I packed up my house in LA and moved across the country. But I'm not a irrational, you know, purchaser. I'm very actually frugal with my money. I mean, I still had a 2002 Honda Civic until it got stolen 2 years ago, like in New York. Like, I'm not that person. So there was no big purchase.
I just asked because, starving artist, and all of a sudden, life kind of changes. So just wondering.
I mean, I definitely enjoyed New York with no hesitation. I went to theater at least once a week.
Like, what's something that you did for yourself that maybe before that you didn't do,
I don't know. Like I said, enjoying New York. New York is an expensive place to live. I was definitely paying way more in rent than I would normally pay. I took a lot of cabs and Ubers, but it wasn't like, and now I'm going to spend my money here. It was like, I'm going to, do the things that I've been doing, but do them a little easier. Yeah, I'll pay to have my groceries delivered. Sure.
Yeah.
Why not? I make enough money. Like, but it wasn't like, and now I'm going to,
extra guac.
Right. No.
So what about, who was the first person that you called? I'm thinking that, who was the first person that you called? I know your parents got to be extremely proud, given that they see you come full circle, especially after that pep talk your mom gives you in the restaurant. And I know your husband got to be going crazy. Who was the first person that you called, to say, I did it?
It was my parents.
Yeah.
And they were the only people that I could call. I think I told my brother and my sister. I think my brother found out that day because my husband and I were having a Bible study at our house. And my brother and my nephew were coming over for Bible study. And so I told my brother, and I told my parents and my sister and my best friend. And other than that, I couldn't tell anybody. Like, no one could know. Marvel had me sign it. Okay. There was no talking about it. And so it wasn't until I packed up my house, and I've got 3 really close girlfriends here in LA. One of them came over to the house, and I was like, I really didn't think about how I was going to navigate her coming over to the house and seeing my house packed up. And so she came over to pick up some stuff, and she saw the house, and she just, like, tears welled up in her eyes because she thought something bad had happened. Like, I think she thought we were getting evicted, or something terrible was going on. And so I was like, no. I'm moving, but I can't talk about it. But I told my mom. My mom flew out to New York with me.
Wow.
To help me, look for a place, because I had about, a couple weeks to find a place. And yeah, you know, my mother and I are like best friends. And so it was important for me to have her a part of the experience. My dad, you know, he stayed back in California. But he still watches Luke Cage to this day. He's like, that's the best show that ever was, according to him.
Oh no, trust me. I mean, I'm in a bunch of Howard group chats, so I mean, when it was on, everybody talking about it, you know. So kudos to you, man. I mean, so when you go and play Misty Knight, that character been around for some years, right?
She was created in, I think, 1974. She was the first Black female superhero ever drawn, but she had never been portrayed in live action.
So that character, though, you know, I'm not into comics, but I know people who are, like, they're like hardcore with it. Like, so with that, I know there's an expectation that you have, like, I got to kind of nail this. I got to become this person. What type of research did you have to do to kind of get into that mode?
I couldn't do any research. I mean, I booked the job and then I moved and started work in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And I was told not to buy any comic books because they were like, a Black woman going to buy a comic book, you're going to let everybody know that it's you. I mean, they literally had me that terrified that that's how deep it went. I couldn't talk about it because I couldn't talk about it with anyone. I couldn't ask anyone. And I couldn't talk about it, you know, in public. And so, you know, the little bit of research that I did on Misty was online. And then the rest of it was in the script. I mean, the words that Cheo and the other people over at Luke Cage and the writing staff, the character that they created was, you know, who this woman was. And they had been mining all of this source material for years. So I had to trust that they had done their jobs. And so all I had to do was come and breathe life to the character that they had written.
When you got the role, did you know that you were making history, or were you just...
No,
I
did not. I was just, you know, happy to have a job and excited to play this woman, but I didn't know that she was the first ever drawn. I didn't know that she predated Storm. I didn't know any of this. And it wasn't until I started doing press for the show that people were telling me, like, well, you know, she was I was like, oh, no, I actually had no idea. So,
man. So I seen you, you know, you got some action, some stunts that you're doing in there. Is that you fighting in there, or you got a stunt person?
I have a stunt person, but that's me most of the time.
And then they cut your arm off, and then you got the bionic arm.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you got to tap into that basketball back at Renaissance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of that. Yeah, that was a fun character to play, and she will always be with me because she was so loved, you know, by me and by everyone else. It's not very often that you get to play a strong character and one that is that unique. You know, she's a superhero. She gets a bionic arm. She, you know, there are so many facets about Misty that I loved and that people loved, that it was a great opportunity.
So you go from that, and then you do let's see, you do Altered Carbon. Is that the next role that you have? And now you're
pretty much. I mean, that was the next long role. I had done a couple other things since that. You know, I did a couple TV shows and then I did a film, but Altered Carbon was the next Netflix project. And, you know, that happened after Luke Cage got canceled. They reached out and I auditioned for it and I booked the job and got to go and spend, you know, 8 months in Vancouver shooting this project with some pretty amazing people, you know, Renee Elise Goldsberry and Anthony Mackie, William Lee, and Chris Connor. And that was, you know, it was a great character to step into because to me, she felt so much different than Misty Knight.
Right. You playing a bounty hunter, right?
Yeah. Not somebody who cared about the law, not somebody who cared about, you know, protecting a community. She was very selfish in that way. And it was a really fun time. And, you know, that show has a huge following. Like they have a very loyal set of fans who have been waiting, I think, 2 years since the first season for the second season to come out. So it was great to be a part of that.
So when after you did Luke Cage, are roles more so coming to you
No,
at that point? No.
no.
So you still having to seek them out?
Seek them out, no, because I don't seek out jobs. I'm not the person who sits and reads, Deadline or Variety to see who's doing what. That's just not me. Auditions come in. I audition like everyone. I don't get offered jobs very often. People ask me to do projects, but definitely not as much as I audition. And so, I think that that's important to recognize. I think that I could say this, but I could not say it. If I could say, if I were a 21-year-old white kid who, fell off the truck, moved and booked the equivalent of Misty Knight, what the world would open up and look like for me versus being, at that time, I was a 33-year-old Black woman who booked that job, what the world was then opened up to. And so, I don't at all bemoan my my career and the opportunities that I've had, but I just know that I have to work just like everybody else has to work, and that is the thing that a lot of actors of color, not just Black people, but, actors of color, actors who are of a certain age, what they deal with. Everything in our society is geared around young and geared around new, and so if you are a person who's been around, who's seasoned, the red carpet doesn't necessarily roll out for you in the same way. And yet it doesn't make the success any sweeter. I mean, I look at Mahershala Ali, who's on season 1 of Luke Cage. At that same time, he had just finished Moonlight, and it hadn't come out yet. Mm-hmm. He was fresh off of House of Cards, but he had been a working actor for
he killed that role too.
And in a matter of 3 years, he won 2 Oscars. I mean, does it matter that once he graduated from grad school, people weren't throwing roles at him? Not really. Because now look at him. I mean, I don't know if it matters to him. I'm saying from the way it looks to me, it doesn't matter. And so, no, roles were not being thrown at me. And yet I'm not hurting for work.
That's what's up. So, just in, we hear stories about crazy stuff that goes on in Hollywood and blah, blah, just crazy stuff. Like it's a trap that people can fall into. Do you have like a circle that you kind of stay with, or like a board of directors, that you kind of bounce ideas off of to kind of help you stay level? And if you do, what does that look like?
I mean, I've got my girlfriends who are actors, who are, the people who I've come up with in LA, and we definitely all help to keep each other motivated. And then I have my best friend who's not an actor, and she's the person who has known me the longest. And, she is my grounding, force, if anything. And I've got my husband and my family. I mean, I think being from Detroit, coming from a working class family, I won't ever forget where I come from. And, having this journey take as long as it's taken to get to where I am, I don't see myself, forgetting that. I mean, obviously your financial change, your tax bracket changes, but my mentality doesn't change, and I recognize that so many things in this life, in this Hollywood life, are so insignificant. I don't ascribe to it. I'm not at every party. I'm not at every premiere. I'm not at every red carpet and the opening of every envelope. It's exhausting to me to participate in those things. I'd rather just be working. And so for me, I think those are the things that keep me grounded. I would much rather spend time with my family.
So as a Black actress, do you feel like you have to go to certain things okay.
No.
What about like mentor? Do you have someone that has kind of guided you in this journey?
I've
Or
had a bunch of mentors, I've had a bunch of people that have given me jewels of wisdom, or that I've worked with, who've imparted what I needed to hear at that time. And at different phases of it, and not necessarily people who saw me as a baby actor and then, nurtured me along, just people who I've become friends with, who are at another level of success, who've given me advice. And, I more so have Christian mentors, people that I, talk to in terms of my spiritual walk, because that to me is the most important thing. This acting career could go away tomorrow, and it would break my heart, but that's not why I'm here. I'm not here to be an actor. I'm here to serve God. And so those are the people that are the more important, more long-standing mentors to me.
wow, that's dope. You always been wise. Even when we got to college, you was like 30 when we was 20. You was always ahead of the game. So, all right. So you get to All Rise at this point. You're a leading woman on CBS. I mean, it don't get much better than that in terms of sitcoms. I mean, you're, becoming a household name. You probably can't even walk around like that anymore. I mean, what does that feel like to, I don't know. I mean, it's I'm sure you got other things you want to do. I did see that you have a thing that you want to portray or do a story about Coretta Scott King. I did see that. But for all in, for the sake of whatever, a lot of your peers who you were going through the struggle with, you kind of take off and have this ascension. I mean, what does it feel like to be in a major sitcom? Because I know a lot of people that do sitcoms or pilots, they don't even make it to TV. Not only did George make it, but you doing a second season. Just if you could kind of sum up what that feeling is like.
It feels great. I have a lot of people around me who, I came up with, auditioned with, were in the, same circles with, who are doing very well. I think obviously it's one of those things where people will go, oh, she's the lead of on a network show, and that's dope. But I know plenty of people who are working, and to me, that's just as important, and that's not lost on me. Like, there are people who I've been friends with for years who are writing shows, who are leading shows in terms of show running, who are, and still building their own thing. And so I think for me, getting to this level is another kind of, hopefully, battery in the back of all of my fellow working actors to say, like, it's still possible. It's still right there. It's going to happen for you. I don't look at it as much as just something for me. I look at it as something for all of us. And I recognize that, being a Black woman on a show means that a lot of other people of color will get a job. Because
how cool is it to play like in your roles? Like, are you conscious of the fact that you're not playing roles that kind of like demean Black women?
Yeah. And that, it feels great to not have to make those concessions, to be able to play somebody who's, how would I put it? Admirable. But
how would I put it? Admirable?
I mean, I guess, people admire And people admire Lola. People admired Misty. But, I think that there's this concept that Black women should only play positive roles. Black people should only tell positive stories. We don't want to see the ugly. We don't want to talk about molestation, child abuse, domestic violence, alcoholism, drug use, even though I'm sure if you ask most people, and it doesn't matter what race, you ask most people, they know somebody or they have someone in their family that has experienced any one of those things. But I think that because of the way that Black people have been portrayed in this country by the media historically, and then the opportunities that we were given for so long in this industry, people shy away from telling these other fringe stories that I think still there are people who identify with it. I mean, we talked about Moonlight. The reason why that movie was so successful is because there was a large group of Black queer people in this country who have never been represented in a way other than reality TV shows or, caricatures of themselves. They're like, that's not the me that I see. And so does playing a woman, does Naomi Harris playing the crackhead mama in Moonlight demean her? No, she's telling somebody's story. She's telling the story of a mother who got hooked on, drugs, abandoned and neglected her child for 20 some odd years. And this is her story. I mean, and there are plenty of things that people do that don't line up with me, but it doesn't mean that I don't think that their stories are valid. So it feels good to not have to make excuses for some of my characters, because I think that when you do play these characters like in Precious, Monique, or when you play these characters that are very human, but they're the ugly side of humanity, people want you to have to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it does feel good to not have to explain my characters, but it doesn't mean that I think that people who play those other characters, that it's demeaning,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you kind of answered that when you said there's not a role that you wouldn't play. I guess it's just good now to have a balance of how Black women are portrayed, where you can kind of see both sides. And it's cool to see that, that positive balance, or that, that regular character is on a network show.
I agree. I mean, there's a lot of reality TV out there, and that's what I think actors are fighting against, especially Black actors.
Yeah, I mean, I got 2 kids, 6, my son's 6, my daughter's 3. And, you have to, it's a lot of stuff on TV. I'm like, damn, they put that on TV, and it's not that, like you said, it's not like it's not reality, but it's like, man, at 6, I don't want them to see that just yet. You know what I mean? I kind of want to ease them into that. So, yeah. Future stuff, in terms of stuff that you want to accomplish. And I think that one of the cool things about your success and just hearing you talk, I think that you have a dope perspective in terms of where you are and, and everything else. And I think that, for you, you're not necessarily saying, oh, I got to do this. It's like, I think that, and tell me if I'm wrong, you kind of want to get to a point where you can just work on passion projects. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I think that that's accurate. I really want to create opportunities for other people. I remember, obviously, how difficult it was, how it felt like the same people were doing the same thing, They weren't discovering new talent. And that's obviously changed. I mean, we've got Netflix, Hulu, Crackle, Quibi. There's so many different platforms where new content is being created. And then you have people creating shows on Facebook, YouTube. You've got people working on network TV, cable shows. Like, there are so many opportunities out there that the same 10 people can't keep starring in all of them. So that there has been an economy of work, or a democratization of acting that has happened. And I want to continue to see that happening. And I want to be able to give, Black women and young men opportunities that, otherwise they wouldn't get, because somebody is like, yeah, but how many followers do they have? Or, yeah, but, what about this person who's been in 20 projects like this?
Is that a thing? Like, do directors or who make those decisions, they ask you how many followers you have?
They don't have to ask. They can just look it up.
But are you conscious of that even now?
No.
Okay.
I'm not conscious of it because, one, I'm not going to do anything to go out and get more followers. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm going to go, shit, let me go buy some followers so I can get this job. So, I mean, the whoever's looking at a project and they're balancing, do they want to go with me or do they want to go with somebody else who may or may not be just as wonderful, but they've got more followers? That's not a project obviously it's not my project. It's not my role. It's not my job. And it will never be. And it doesn't matter.
How you get to that point? I mean, it sounds like you just get to a point like you just, hey, fuck it. Hey, look, y'all like me or y'all don't, but God is in control.
It's a very free feeling. And I think that more people in life.
But people don't have that. I mean, Simone, like, people don't feel that way. I mean, I'm in business, I've been like, I don't have that. Like, it's times like this pandemic hit and my staff has to work from home, all of us. Like, I'm still, like, my mom is like, just pray about it. It's not, I'm not, like, my mom is exactly like you. She'd be like, man, if God wanted to happen, it's going to happen. How do you get to that place? Because I've prayed and I still, be like shook. And I'm in an industry where I'm an Allstate agent, it's structure here. You're in an industry where you might, God forbid, you might not, anything can happen basically, in your field. Like, how did you get to that point where
I spent a lot of time working on my spiritual growth because I was unhappy, because I was depressed as an actor, thinking this is never going to happen. And realizing that I had fallen away from my understanding of who I was in God's eyes. And so I spent, 2+ years waking up every morning, praying for an hour, spending time in the Word, and then worrying about the rest of my day. And I look at a lot of people during this time. Granted, I am in a very blessed position financially, that I don't have to rush back to work. That is not the case with most people. So I don't judge anyone's response to this scenario. I mean, we're in a pandemic. Most of us have never seen anything like this. I mean, our great grandparents were probably around for the tail end of polio, but most people have never experienced it. So people's reactions to it are going to vary. And I don't, I recognize the blessing that I have to be in this position. But I said, if I don't come out of, a lot of people are like, if you don't come out of this and you haven't created the next business or written the next big script or, come up with the next big TV show, you wasted your time. If I don't come out of this stronger and closer to God, then this is a waste of my time inside. And that's, for me, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all these things will be added unto you. Like, that scripture means everything to me. I mean, none of this would be possible for me without God. And so other than
you about to make me cry. Like, I'm low key getting emotional. I'm trying to get to, where you are with having that peace of mind. That's really kind of why I do this podcast. Just hearing stories of people like yourself, who persevered and, have succeeded. It's super dope. I would like you to touch on those, that depressed state. You ain't got to go into super detail, but I think it's something that, because obviously I'm going to share this with with whoever. I would love for you to talk about that, and maybe what made you feel that way, and then maybe how you got out of it. You ain't got to go into super detail, but I think it's something that a lot of people go through. Like, I've had some of our peers on here, like Alex Dixon. He was the first person I interviewed. He was telling me stuff like, I was like, damn, man, like, Alex, you always say, like, every time I seen you, you was like, like, I didn't know you went through that. I've had so many people who, like, man, my friend Rashida, you might know Rashida Brady. She's a writer out there. She was telling me that she had wrote some big story on Blackish or whatever, and then she was on welfare like 2 years later. I'm like, those stories, I'm not saying they make me feel good, but they do make me feel like you do have to trust God with a lot of stuff, and you got to trust everything that got you to this point. But if you feel comfortable sharing something,
Yeah. I
please.
mean, I was sitting in my kitchen in LA, and it was like a typical, LA gray winter morning where it's like, there's no sun, it's just cloudy. And I was like, oh, I'm depressed. And it was like a lightning bolt hit me because I hadn't realized it. And I had been in a funk, and I hadn't realized when I slipped into it, and I didn't know how long it had been going on, but I knew that I was in it. And I decided, because I have known this, over and over again in my life, that whenever I'm seeking something and it's not coming to me, it's because I'm not giving. It's because I'm not giving to God. It's because I'm not focused on Him. It's because I'm focused on all the other stuff. Every time I've been disappointed in life, upset, feeling less than, lacking, all of those things, I've always been able to point it to, oh, I'm not praying as much as I used to. Oh, I'm not, going to fellowship. I'm not fellowshipping with other believers. I'm not reading the word. These are all things that I'm not doing. And then I look up and I'm like, oh, okay, I can see why I'm off. And so I reached out to my girlfriends, my 3, and we started a Bible study. And we started reading The Purpose-Driven Life. And it was at that time that I was still saying to God, like, if there is anything else that I could be doing, please tell me, because this is too painful. This is too hard. And if there's something else that you want me to do, I will quit acting and walk away from it and go and seek this thing. And I started reading this book, and I realized, nope, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And there was a peace that came with that, because I was no longer questioning whether or not this was supposed to be my thing, or this was the thing I was put here for. I now knew it. I now knew it according to the word. I knew it according to signs, wonders, and miracles that I had seen in my life. I just didn't have a resume that reflected it. And it was like, okay, I can work through that. Now that I know, now that you have answered my question, got it. I don't need to learn that lesson again. And so, like I said, for the next 2 years, my girlfriends and I would read the word together. We would read a different book every month. We would talk about it. We would pray together. When we would have auditions, we were there to, pray with each other, help each other on an audition if we needed to. And also, just taking that focus away from acting and putting that focus on serving, on having a Bible study, on having prayer calls. Then my husband and I had a Bible study in our house, because it was like, well, we have to continue to give. And so for me, that has always been the thing that has been the center force, the center guiding force. And whenever things are off, it's because of that. And, when Luke Cage was canceled, a lot of people were like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for you. This is awful. I love that show. I love that character. What are you going to do? I was excited. Not because the show was ending, because I love that show too. Not because I was out of work, because who wants to be? But I was like, oh, you have something bigger. What is it? I can't wait to find out. And that's just the way I have to approach every loss.
So, legacy, what, when it's all said and done, 50 plus years from now, what are people saying about Simone Missick?
Oh, I want them to say that, she was a great artist and writer and producer and wife and friend and Howard alum who gave people opportunities and opened doors for people, and, made projects that were important to our culture as Black people in America. To have 2 firsts under my belt already, and I'm only 15 years in this industry is amazing. I look at Alfre Woodard, a woman who has been nominated for and won, Emmys and been nominated for all kinds of awards.
And you broke Netflix.
Yeah,
that's a big one.
That's a big one. Let's hope they keep talking about that in the record books, So yeah, that's what I want my legacy to be, that I gave other people opportunities. And that,
how does it feel to go back to Howard in the position that you are now? Or even going back to Detroit too. That's got to be super rewarding.
It feels good. I'm a person who doesn't. I don't know. I don't feel comfortable in being.
I know you always been like that. I remember freshman year, the Dayton game. I remember doing a freshman orientation. I remember you on the stage, and they was like, and you just like, you was just like, what is this? Like you was over it. And I mean, that's kind of, the same person, that you've been.
Hopefully I keep that going.
Yeah. All right. So right now we're going to get into some trivia.
Let's do it.
And
I have to hop off soon.
Okay. It's going to be quick. So we're just going to see what you know about
Jeopardy. I don't know nothing.
Okay.
Everything I learned in freshman orientation, I have forgotten.
All right. I'm going to ask you real quick. So
let's do it.
What year was Howard founded?
1867.
There you go. That's one.
Damn. Woo.
What's the Howard motto?
Ooh.
Truth and service.
I ain't got it. Truth and service. That's the Howard motto. Okay.
Yeah. Who's the current president of Howard? Oh, damn.
I'll tell you.
What is, so I know you ain't gonna get this one. What's the zip code of Howard?
20001?
Close. Well, close. That's not it though. It's 20059.
No, that wasn't close at all.
Can you finish this sentence? Reared against the eastern sky.
Proud of top the hilltop high?
That's close. Proudly there on Hilltop High. What's the Black national anthem?
By Weldon B. Johnson?
What
is it? You want me to sing it?
No. What's the name of the song?
The Black national anthem. The name is Lift Every Voice and Sing.
There you go. It's easier than you thought it was gonna be. Finish this sentence. I'm so glad I go to Howard U.
And not a white school.
Yeah, there you go. All right, here go rapid fire. Because I know you got to rush. So rapid fire, you just got to give an answer, and you can't expound on it. Just give an answer or the first thought that comes to mind. All right, is homecoming better as an alum or undergrad?
Undergrad.
Quad or NX?
NX.
One of them you got to start, one you have to bench, and one you have to cut. Theater, sitcoms, or movies?
I would start movies.
Okay.
I would bench theater. I would cut sitcoms.
Okay. What comes to mind when you hear this word? Monique, Netflix.
Comedy special. That's all I'm
When you hear Black as Fuck.
Funny.
Okay, Drew Hall or Carver?
Drew Hall.
Jordan or LeBron?
LeBron.
Oh, boo.
I'm sorry, you from Chicago. I'm from Detroit. We hated y'all.
Oh, man. Okay, last question. Howard China or China Wonder?
Ho Chi.
Okay, cool. That's it, Simone. So thank you again for coming on the show. So if people want to follow your work or keep up with what you got going on, how would they do that?
It's at Simone Missick on all platforms.
Dope, man. Dope. Thank you again for being my guest. This really means a lot.
Yeah, this was great.
Knowing you for about, man, we getting old. 20 years. Yeah. So yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. I certainly appreciate it.
Yes, no, this is wonderful.
Thank you for joining the HU Movemaker podcast, where we highlight folks that have contributed to the Howard legacy at the highest levels. To hear more interviews or purchase merchandise, please visit www.humovemakers.com.